Now, when you look at the existing app stacks and how they actually impact this decision-making process, you'll find a few things. One is that a big chunk of budget is spent on existing app support and maintenance. The number of applications that we ran at Morgan Stanley was pretty tremendous. We would invest a lot of energy in bug fixes, maintenance, in some cases figuring out whether we should even end of life an application was an expensive process. So a tremendous amount of budget went into existing apps. We also find that still within the world's biggest companies, especially 85% of the app landscape is defined by a combination of Java and .NET. Despite all of the interesting, amazing new stuff going on with new stacks, there's still this massive footprint of technologies that we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And last, when you look at these portfolios, you'll find that most companies believe that by cloud enabling the existing apps, they can find new value, they can rationalize spend, they can find new ways to revenue. So these three big buckets are driving a lot of this behavior. And I think the key takeaway here is that the footprint, this anchor of existing applications, is so important to the migration to cloud that everybody has to at least think about it, if not come up with a plan and strategy for it. This to me is one of the more interesting charts, right? We call them cloud native applications and new applications. A new application is no longer new next year, right? It's now just an existing app. That's what we would call it. If you look at your typical portfolio of apps in any company, today, most of them are traditionally architected apps. They're not microservices, they're three-tier web apps, they are JEE stacks and .NET stacks, and there's some development going on in the cloud native space where people are building brand new microservices to power their business going forward. You fast forward on that timeline a couple of years, 2 years, 5 years, the percentage of the app portfolio that follows the cloud native architecture will grow. So which one's more important, cloud native or existing? It's both, right? It has to be both. Interestingly enough, and I think this is where a pretty powerful story that impacted me 3 or 4 years ago around this idea that existing and new were both important was we were working with an insurance customer in the Midwest. And they were building a new set of microservices to power insurance claims. So like you get in a car accident, you pull out your phone and you submit the claim. Now the microservices were providing the back end for the mobile app. And it turns out they had this awesome, shiny microservice that called out to all the existing apps for the workflows to do the claims processing. So no microservice really lives in isolation, right? It's not an island. Instead, you'll find that these microservices have dependencies on existing apps. And that linkage between the microservice and the existing app is what told me that they're both equally important. It's very rare that you're going to write a cloud-native application that lives in isolation, that doesn't have a dependency on the existing app portfolio or the workflows captured in apps that have been written in the past 10 years. So once you absorb that and you understand a lot of the cloud-native net new development has a dependency on existing apps and on all those workflows, you'll find that one isn't more important than the other in the transition to cloud, but they have to have equal treatment so that you can successfully roll out a cloud strategy.